Paul, because that Harari's Baba's crap.
Look, it is tough. It is tough. But I'm sure Paul will send through the questions as well. Although I do think that one of the things we want to start off with, and Paul wants to talk about, if you guys don't mind me continuing the chat. Wahid, Ole's gone. We've been talking about this Ole out for ages. You've been trying to push for Ole to go, and now it's happened. Are you happy that it's happened? Because I know what it's like to see a legend come to the club, take over. You're in all your fields, and then all of a sudden the fields are no longer what they used to be, and now you want them out. They're gone. Tell us about the range of emotions you've been going through.
So to correct you, I've never been Ole out. I think everybody knows that. I never wanted to sit here and place the blame at his feet. And I think we all know during other podcasts, I've had various issues with the structural boardroom sort of stuff at United and the structural issues at United. And I thought that Ole maybe became a scapegoat at the end for the board. And retrospectively, I would think that he was almost hung out to dry by the board. He should probably have been sacked 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. And what happened was that Woodward and Richard Arnold and all the suits upstairs probably realized that it needed to reach a nadir for in order for the focus to be on Ole and not on them, because for the last couple of months the focus has been on United misfiring at a boardroom level, and there's been protests and all sorts of things directed at the owners. And I think that the club probably thought that it needed to reach this point so that the focus was completely off them. And yeah, I was never Ole out, and but I think it was time, and the results weren't indicative of a squad with the caliber of Man United, and I think that was probably the biggest issue. And I've said before that, let's not get it wrong. Ole Gunnar Solksjaer did a really good job. He did a really good job in coming into a broken club, a broken football team, a broken squad, and correcting a lot of the wrongs that happened under Jose Mourinho. And he did that. He steadied the ship. He rebuilt a squad. The club is more true to its identity. And he then went and got a squad which was ready to challenge for the title. And it's no indictment on him that he couldn't use that squad. That he reached his level, and that's that. But as I said to Dean a couple of weeks ago, I think it would have been grossly unfair for him to have taken United from 6th to 3rd to 2nd, then being given the tools to try and go and challenge, and then being denied that opportunity. I think he earned the right to be given the opportunity to go challenge, and having failed, we now sit in a situation which retrospectively could have been avoided, but I think that people were fair to Ole in giving him the chance.
No, and I agree with you. I'm going to get let Seppo ask a question before I make a statement. Seppo, you want to say something?
Yeah. I wanted to ask, do you not think he just overstayed his welcome? Because it felt like at the Europa League final with Villarreal last year, that was as much as Ole could do. I don't know if you felt it, but I felt something similar to what I saw with Poch and Tottenham in the Champions League final. Like, he did well, but he's just not a trophy-winning manager. He's just not like that level, like an elite man. He was a great caretaker, but he wasn't, from my perspective, it looked like he wasn't ever going to be able to take United to the next level. Because, I mean, if you can't win Europa, then how are you talking about being a title contender with just a few transfers?
That's a heck of a point. And you know what's interesting about it, though, and it actually is a great way for me to add the point that I want to make, is I feel as if it was almost like Mr. Bean at a Ferrari shop, right? You know what car Mr. Bean drives, and then you give him like a supercar, and then you're like, okay, so what now? You're supposed to win races with it. Though that is a really tough analogy, because he is more than just Mr. Bean or a PE teacher. I think the thing is, when you look at Ole, and perhaps it's the same thing that was leveled at Frank Lampard, is that there were moments in his tenure and in Frank's tenure where they seemed to be out of their depth, and they just didn't look as if they could hold the reins of this horse that was just going. Whether they liked it or not, they just didn't look as if they were able to control this ship. So I think that's Seppo's point, though. And then when you look at the Europa League final, you know, you come up against a United, a team in Villarreal who've got a manager who's been at this, type of occasion so often, who is able to get the most out of his players. So I'll go to Dean next with the next question. But Wahid, is there anything to add to what we're saying? Do you totally disagree with it?
Yeah, I do agree, and I do think that if you ask me to be honest, like deep down, to put my love for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer aside, I think after the Europa League final, if I had to be honest, which I probably wasn't, I did maybe get the feeling that that was probably the height of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Because to be honest, even with the team that we had there before the transfers we pulled off this summer, we should have wiped the floor with Villarreal in that final.
Yeah.
And it was as simple and straightforward as that. We went out, we looked scared. We didn't have a very good tactical game plan in that situation. And then you compare that with Mourinho, okay? And I don't want to do that because Mourinho really screwed up Man United culturally and structurally and stuff. But when he did get to the Europa League final, he was able to put out a very, very good tactical game plan to win us a final. He knew what he was doing, and I think Ole didn't know what he was doing in trying to win us a one-off game. Ole, probably like Frank Lampard, coached culturally and not necessarily tactically and with coaching on the field. They brought a cultural sort of aspect to the backroom staff, and I think probably Ole probably overachieved with that cultural outlook towards his coaching instead of a tactical on the ball, on the training ground outlook. So yeah, it was his way, and I suspect he'll get another crack at a job. And I think that if he were to get something like a Villa job, and I've said that before, I think he'd probably be very good at it. But let's see. Yeah, it's unfortunate that it ended like that. I think all United fans would have loved to see Ole Gunnar Solskjaer do well at the club, as Chelsea fans would have loved to see Frank Lampard do well at the club. But it just wasn't enough. And now we're going to go down a different route, it seems.
And I mean, this is basically it, because at the end of the day, your club legend either stays a legend and achieves incredible things for you, but that doesn't happen often. And I think that you see that in the different clubs. I don't even want to think about what's going to happen to Xavi when Barcelona flame out, because it's definitely going to happen. But Dean, let's look at Carrick, right? I mean, Carrick, who's a Tottenham Hotspur legend. Oh, sorry, legend. Carrick, who's a Man United legend. But in essence, he's won his first game. That's sort of new manager bound, sort of upliftment that happens with some of these guys. And you just think, okay, fine. Is this really what they need? Is it somebody to supposedly steady the ship, whatever that means, considering that the only person who's left is Ole and everyone else has just stayed the same? So do you think Carrick can try and do something a little different? Is there something freeing about having him there as opposed to Ole? What do you think, Dee?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Carrick is going to solve the solutions, and I don't think Carrick's not going to find solutions, and I don't think United fans expect him to magically fix this United team and take them from wherever they are now, 7th, 8th in the log, and take them up to top 4. Like, I don't think United fans are expecting that. Carrick, as a manager, obviously he's been involved in Ole's team for the last 3 odd years or whatever it was, and he's obviously so he's learned and he knows what he's kind of doing around the team. But only United can take a coach and then try and find another 3 coaches to replace them in the span of the next 6 months or however long the rest of the season is. I mean, they've got a caretaker, then an interim, then a full-time is what people are saying. So Carrick is literally just a buffer. He's no Ryan Mason, so let's get that straight.
And perhaps that's a good thing.
So, and I think you look at the game that United played against Villarreal, United still didn't look that fantastic. Yes, they got the result 2-0, but if it wasn't for that very poor back pass by the Villarreal defenders, Ronaldo doesn't get in there. And after that goal, you could see Villarreal was so flat. And give credit where it's due. Sancho nailed that second goal. Absolute amazing. So happy for him. But it still wasn't reminiscent of great United teams. And that's the problem. There's still links that are missing. I think playing Van der Beek was a bit of a feel-good factor. I don't know what you feel Wahid, but I think you played him to kind of say, oh, fans, I'm here. I'm going to try something new. Or, he has this guy. I know you guys have all been calling for him to play, so let me play him. So
Free
I don't
Donny.
know.
Hashtag free Donny.
Yeah,
Free Donny.
which
And it must be noted that United were a ton better once Van der Beek went off and Bruno played. It was completely chalk and cheese.
Bruno is a better player. I don't think anyone
Yeah.
doubts that Bruno is a better player. But that's the thing.
That's mainly because he's been on the pitch. So, you know, it's
He
easy to
knows
be the
what
better
grass
player
feels
when
like.
you're actually playing.
No, this
But
guy
yeah, I
deserves
think-
more respect.
Carrick, obviously Carrick is then caretaker and then interim. I don't know. They're looking interim and then either a full-time or skip the interim appointment. But I'll be interesting to see how long Carrick actually has the reins, especially going into this very busy festive period where the games are coming thick and fast. We're having 2-3 games a week. How long United are going to stick with him? Because if they stick with Carrick now until January when the games start kind of easing up, they could very easily lose a lot of ground in the front runners on the Premier League table. So Carrick is a solution for now, but it's not the right solution given the point that we are at in the season. As a United fan, I'd want them to find, if I was a United fan, I want to find a solution yesterday and try and get someone in the door. The problem is, who do you bring? That's the problem.
Yeah.
And you see,
that leads
Yeah, Dean, I mean, that's exactly it, because that goes to the point, and I'll ask Chip the question. Though I do want to say this, you know, the timing of the Ole firing is absolutely horrendous, because it should have happened sooner. We all know this. You know, you don't wait till you have to remove the leg in order to be like, right,
Especially
I guess we're going to
after
make
an
a decision
international
now.
break. Yeah.
Exactly. But Tsepo, is it possible that United then say, okay, fine, we're going to ditch this interim coach before we appoint a coach? And I mean, everybody's talking about Poch and whether or not he'll be released by PSG. And then there's reports saying PSG say there's no ways they're going to do that. They still have work to be done. But could you potentially see the Frank Lampard to Thomas Tuchel type thing happen at United, where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to ex-manager? And do you have any ideas who that could be? I mean, I'm asking you to whip out the biggest crystal ball ever. I mean, when I saw Valverde there, I was like, hang on, shucks, that guy's still around.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know, hey. I don't know. And I'm sitting here in SA, I don't know. And it feels like the United board also don't know who the next person is. All I know is that this is going to be pretty shambolic for a while. The decision making in terms of how they make it and when they make it, as you said, like after the international break, like that was poor. Yeah, like if you knew that Ole wasn't the man for the job, why are we like beating this dead horse? You could see he wasn't getting the best out of the players, but they tried to force it, and it doesn't look like they're making a lot of football decisions here. There were talks of Poch. I'm not sure if Poch is going to be a good fit. I don't know if it's going to be a good type of move, because the thing that happened with Chelsea and Tuchel is that Tuchel was available, and we sort of just went, and he wanted to chill for like a little bit longer, but then Abramovich was like, "Nay, bruh, we need you now." So yeah, and then he came, and then he did
what
the
a
things,
move it was.
and it was a great move. But the problem is now we have like Ernesto Valverde. He's available at the moment. He's sitting, but I mean, he's a good manager. But I mean, like he had MSN there, Messi, Suarez, Neymar. They were absolutely fantastic, and props to him for getting the best out of them. But yeah, they were good players, and maybe that's what United need. Maybe he could pull through and make Ronaldo a senior player that is for the junior players, much like what happened with Cavani. Because what it looked like before Ronaldo came was it looked like there was some sort of semblance of like a young team, like fighting like together. You know, Bruno Fernandes was getting up the troops. I remember that Leeds game after Pogba got like 4 assists. Fernandes got his hat-trick and he was like, "This guy's the man, he's the one." And you don't feel that anymore. Or was it just a feel-good factor?
Well,
was
the
it that
camaraderie, all of that
players,
seems to have been gone.
yeah, and I mean the quality's there with the players there. Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho showed how good he actually was, and it felt like Jadon Sancho played like 11 games, but this guy was doing nothing. It was like another Timo Werner, but now he's actually showing some quality. So all these guys need is someone to get all these like superstars together, to get all the superstars and the youth working together in a proper system. And I don't know who it could be. Maybe it could be Ronald Koeman. He keeps failing upwards. Who knows? I mean, Andrea
Failing
Pirlo
upwards.
is also available. Even failing upwards. That guy went from Everton to Netherlands to Barcelona. Failed upwards. He never won anything. He failed upwards.
But the thing is, weirdly, I mean, the Barcelona thing is obviously the legend status, and this also goes then back to the conversation we had around Lampard, Ole, though Koeman's been around the block for a while. I do think, though, that there's a very interesting point that you raise around in terms of the managers that are there. And I think that when you look at the timing perspective, Wahid made the point right at the beginning of the show where it was a question of waiting till it got so bad that firing him made them look good, as opposed to firing him and then taking some of that heat. But I do think that you can tell these are people who just have not looked at the footballing side of things and said, oh, well, we'll just find somebody. They should have had somebody lined up already. And I think, those kinds of discussions could have happened in the background for a long time, saying, because the writing has been on the wall for weeks, not just in the last couple of days. So, Wahid, let me ask you the question then, because I asked Tsepo who he thinks it could be. Maybe what I should be asking Wahid is, who do you want it to be?
Oh,
not Poch. Come on.
I think that of all the managers out there, I would narrow it down. Okay, I'm gonna talk about who I want for the long term, and then I'm gonna talk about what I think is gonna happen. So, long term managers, I think my top choice would be Mauricio Pochettino. I think that he would do well with this squad. I think that he's worked in a structure similar to Man United's before at Tottenham, where people like Daniel Levy make non-footballing decisions sometimes, and I think he would be able to work with the Man United squad within the confines of the current structure, where I think United still call it the manager because of the United Way TM, but it's really a head coach. It's really a head coach. And I think Pochettino would work really well in that. The other names I quite like are Erik ten Hag, but I don't know much about him apart from watching the Champions League. He does really well in the Champions League, but
don't do that.
He works for football men, and he works in Ajax structure, which is all about the sporting ideology. And I'm not sure if you take him out of that cotton wool wrapped club in Ajax and put him in a situation where he's working for bankers at Man United, I'm not sure if he'd be able to. And you can switch the word B with the letter B with the letter W at Man United, where we talk about working for bankers. But I'm not sure he'd thrive under those circumstances. The last name is Brendan Rodgers, and I have been a fan of Brendan Rodgers. I think he's got a very good football ideology. Sometimes it seems like he struggles to get that to the players, but I think that given time and resources, he could do really well. I think his time at Swansea was a success. His time at Celtic was a success. He almost had good success at Liverpool. So I think he'd be the third name that I'd throw in that. Though for me, Pochettino is the one, and I think that he'll work best with the squad, with the structure and all sorts. Having said that, I don't think we're going to get Pochettino now. I think that there's going to be a lot of talk of us trying to get Pochettino. I don't think he's going to come right now. I think we're going to have to wait till the end of the season, which is, again, a bit of a play because if Pochettino wins the Champions League, there's no way PSG are going to let him go to Man United. So if you're putting your eggs in the Pochettino basket, they could fall out and break.
Yeah, so, you'd have yourself a street omelet.
Yeah. So we then look at interim managers' names, and none of them exactly strike confidence into me.
Not even Mark Hughes.
It's not Marky, not Bruce. It just seems like they're scrambling. It seems like they're on Football Manager, then they've clicked on like available free agents. And they're trying to find an available coach. So I'm not sure who it's going to be. There's been links with Valverde. There's been links with Bruce. Those are the ones out of a job and interested in the post. And I think the most interesting one for me will be Ralph Rangnick. But apparently
he's still busy.
He's had discussions with the Man United board before, and they did not see eye to eye on footballing ideologies. So we'll have to see what happens. It really looks like the board is pissing in the dark, hoping to hit the pot. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with this post. It seems shambolic at the moment.
And
Nuno.
I'm with you. Nuno would just be an absolutely amazing appointment in terms of just pure banter. But there's another name that hasn't necessarily come up, and that's Laurent Blanc. And I'd be interested to see whether or not, because he's played at the club before, had under varying degrees of success. But I think the thing about it is that he's also not a bad coach. But having said that, the world is full of coaches. No one knows what's going to happen. It could even be
was the
Diego
other name
Simeone.
mentioned when Ole took over. It was between him and Ole when Ole took over. So yeah.
But I do think anything could happen. Before we close out this though, Tsepo, United play Chelsea this weekend. We haven't even spoken about that yet. Do you think this managerial issue might destabilize United going into the Chelsea game, considering Chelsea have picked up injuries to Kante and Chilwell, who were really on-form players?
I think Chelsea is a team that plays better than the sum of its parts. That Thomas Tuchel system is absolutely fantastic. We're chatting about centre-backs in the WhatsApp group, and people were like, I'm not sure I would want a Chelsea centre-back because the system is just so good that it makes everyone look good. And I think that the way like Chelsea has so much depth, they're going to be able to find people to slot into those roles. The youth from the academy have also been doing quite well, been slotting in quite nicely. Ruben Loftus-Cheek had a great game yesterday.
Don't talk about my cousin. That guy. Oh my gosh.
These guys are, I think when you have someone telling you, giving you clear instructions and you have a clear way of playing, that's totally different to when you're still trying to like find your bearings. And I feel like United were still finding their bearings with Solskjaer. So now it's going to be a bit worse. But you know what? The United way is to do things that like no one would really expect. You guys like had like so many comebacks. You won so many points from like coming from behind so often. So anything is possible. But that would be one game in many, many games. So you could get 3 points this weekend, and I'd be like, that's fine. But the real thing is when like teams that you should win against, you don't win against. That's when everyone really, really laughs at your team. So yeah, this weekend's fixture, it's a feel-good game. Anything can happen if there's a lapse in concentration and United just get their act together for one weekend and they all switch on, because this is a team full of like very talented individuals, and that's how they've been churning out results. Ronaldo keeps scoring like in the last minutes, and that could happen. And then
even in games where United are losing, Ronaldo's popping up with goals, whether offside or onside. And I think that, to your point, I would never take my eye off the ball if I'm Chelsea, because United, especially at the Bridge, has been a very tricky fixture in the past where, all of a sudden some Mexican guy who hasn't necessarily lit up the league suddenly comes and chicharitos you. And then you're like, okay, this again, how the heck is this happening? But I do think that Tuchel's the kind of manager who would have as many different plans in place to try and counter whatever United might come through with. And as much as I malign him, Marcus Rashford is made for these kinds of fixtures. He somehow also finds another gear when it comes to playing at the Bridge, maybe because it's such a small stadium. I'll close off this section of the podcast by just asking Dean about Antonio Conte, because we've spoken about Ole as
one point about Chelsea.
Yes.
I have never, since the class of 92, seen a crop of youngsters come through at the same time and be this good.
Yeah.
The last time I've seen this was at United, and it's surprising because these days it's not that common to see one player come through because of the nature of the Premier League. The Premier League is driven by instant success, so bringing through one player is difficult. To bring through a crop all at the same time, unspoken of at the moment, and I haven't seen this in a very long time. Chelsea doing phenomenal things and almost breaking this idea that they don't play youngsters, because this is seriously good stuff from a group of Chelsea youth academy graduates.
Okay,
you're opening up a can of worms.
This is a topic very close to my heart, Wahid. You know that, and I will say this in mitigation. Abramovich has spent £1 billion on the academy, so at some point it's got to bear fruit. And we're actually seeing this come through now, because I saw something the other night that said Mason Mount joined Chelsea when he was 6, Reece James when he was 7, and Trevor Chalobah when he was 8. And you can just see that progression now in terms of how they've made it into the first team. Conor Gallagher's next. I tell you that, and I honestly don't see how Chelsea let him go anywhere. If anything, Jorginho might get that golden handshake at the end of the season, or Kovacic. You never know. But I'm not even going to go there. Dean, tell us about Conte. Are you happy with how things have gone so far?
Yeah, look, I'm 100% Italian at the moment.
Of course, Dean Battersby. Very Italian. The Battersby is with an I, not a Y.
The one thing I will say, so
didn't you date an Italian at some point?
Yeah, but now I'm proper Italian.
The secret's
Now I'm
coming out.
really Italian. So I've said it before, and Spurs losing to United when we did was the best thing Spurs could have done, because it meant we got Conte before United could have got Conte. And Conte, everyone knows Conte was interested in the job. There's no secrets about that. He would have taken over at United, and he would have then, everyone would have been looking at United doing magical things. Conte's come into the Spurs team. He hasn't waved his magic wand, which everyone might have thought he would. He hasn't taken us from losing to winning massively. But the one thing that I have seen, and this past weekend was a great example of, did an analysis on the first half performance, which was terrible. And they played flat 5, same as Nuno, and it was terrible football. Leeds were all over us, scored that goal, and we went in 1-0 at the break. Conte said what he needed to say. Spurs came out so much more positive. We played a proper 3 at the back. The wing backs were high with Reguilon and Emerson. And us then taking that game to winning, I think, has installed a lot of confidence from the Spurs players in Conte of saying, hang on, this guy knows what he's doing. If we just listen to him, we will succeed. And I think it was I'm really happy that first half happened, and I'm even happier that the second half happened, obviously, because it's now, I can see Spurs going from strength to strength now. And honestly, Spurs are fighting that 4th position. I don't see West Ham going to go for it. They had that shock loss against Wolves over the weekend. Arsenal are there and thereabouts. But I think it's Spurs to take and it's Spurs to lose is the way I see it. So big talk, but I really see it that way. And I really hope we see even more under Antonio Conte, because it's amazing. It's so happy to have a coach that you are proud of. And I think that's the big thing.
No, I'm totally with you. And if there's one thing that you'll learn about Antonio Conte is that sometimes you can lose at Arsenal and feel as if it's a disgrace, and he'll change things up and you end up as league champions. I certainly hope that is not the case with Spurs. But thank you so much, everybody. That's the end of this particular podcast. It's been incredible. The Cheap Seats carries on with the FPL discussion on the next one. But everybody just do your thing. It's been really interesting with Adam Poor, considering that Harare is not doing him any favors, but we'll see him soon. All right, we'll end off this one right now.